That call for action has sent ripple effects across the business sector. To help us break down what this means and what comes next, we're joined by Qua Hiansen, President of the Financial Executives Institute of the Philippines, or FINEX. Hi, EJ. Good to have you with us.
Hi, good morning, Mikey.
EJ, this is an economic issue, and this joint statement was initiated by the PCCI. What pushed all of you to join this?
I think the unity really shows the scale of the problem. Corruption isn't something that impacts just one business, one sector, one person. It's pervasive and affects all of us. If you trace it back, actually, the conversations really started at the beginning of this year. For us personally at FINEX, it started at our induction when Ramon Del Rosario Jr. really started bringing up the anomalies in the budget. And since then, the business groups have kept that momentum going, discussing it and bringing issues to light and making the recommendations. And I think this one in particular, we're entering 2026. We still have time to correct the 2026 national budget. So we have to act urgently to make sure it's done properly.
Yeah, we just got off FATFA's gray list. We don't want to go back in there.
Exactly.
You know, corruption is, as we've seen, it's deep and it's pervasive. And the flood control scandal is just the latest symptom. EJ, what kind of damage are you seeing on the on investor confidence and on fiscal discipline as a result of this?
Sure. I think when we talk about investor confidence, at least the current commitments are being honored. We can't yet see the impact on future investors. Although, again, as you mentioned, we did just get off the FATFA list. We don't want to go back on. Going back on it would certainly dampen investor confidence. I think when we talk fiscal discipline, though, obviously there's a delay in government spending as a result of these. As we look at the projects more in detail to see if they're real and they will actually return value, that will have a slowdown effect on economic growth.
Yeah, we need projects that return value. You know, when we talk about fiscal discipline, you know, there's the interest and there's the principal that we're paying. Can you share with us your perspective on how things look? We've borrowed about $1.5 trillion additional last year. You know, how is this deterring future investments?
Sure. If you look over the last 10 years, our national debt has grown by about 10 trillion pesos, right? That's real debt that we take on. For the 10 trillion pesos, the last time the government issued 5-year debt, it was about 5.8%. So let's just say for every trillion pesos, we're going to end up paying, 58 billion a year in interest expense. And at some point, we have to pay off that principal again or reborrow, which is what we've been doing recently. At some point, if these investments that the government's making don't pay back, we might not be able to pay that off. Right now, the Philippines is in good fiscal shape. The governments have done a good job of bringing that in and improving our balance sheet. But again, if we're not investing prudently, creating projects of real value or real projects, the debt is real. Right? And at some point, we're going to have to pay the bill.
That's right. You know, the projects may be ghost, but the debt is real.
Exactly.
EJ, do you think the president is going to respond to this plea? And what would you like to see between now and perhaps by the end of the year, December?
Well, he definitely has to respond. Again, this is an issue of national importance. You can see that the people really are demanding for accountability and are demanding for transparency. So what we'd like to see going into next year, of course, one is we need and want a transparent budget, both in how it's prepared, where people can participate, and then transparency in how it's allocated and subsequently dispersed to make sure that the funds, again, are going to the right projects that have been identified. Secondly, going back to accountability, people really need to be charged and tried to the full extent of the law for all of these things that have happened. It's blown up over the last few months, and we still haven't seen people charged. We've seen investigations, discussions, but there hasn't yet been that accountability on the level of the
This
perpetrators.
blew up in September. It's mid-October now. But you know, we've established the ICI, but also we have the Ombudsman and we have the COA. We want to see, I guess what people are saying is they want to see real teeth. Taking a look at the fiscal outlook and the risks of this crisis, we have a proposed 6.8 trillion budget for 2026. 950 billion of that is going to go to interest payments, 1 trillion for principal amortization. That's nearly 2 trillion just to pay off past debt. Our debt to GDP ratio at present is where it's not comfortable. It's not great. It's not too bad. We're at about 60%, whereas for developing countries that should be at about 70. So we're okay. But what about our ability to repay, the ability of future generations to repay, if not our generation? It's going to be for the kids. What are your thoughts on this, EJ?
I think we have to look beyond the debt to GDP number, right? The debt to GDP number shows how much we can borrow. But what's really more important to us and to future generations is how much can we repay, right? So again, going back to what I was saying earlier, can we pay off that interest payment every year? Can we pay off that principal when it's due? Or will we have the ability to refinance and borrow again down the road? The more that we pay in interest expense, the more we pay in principal payments, the less we can use to actually strengthen our country.
Right. The less ammunition we have to work with.
Exactly.
We're paying so much debt, and that debt, if that's just financing corruption. Lastly, I wanted to ask you, EJ, how will FINEX sustain this momentum? How are you going to make sure that we see traction from Malacanang?
Sure. We're going to continue to hold our government accountable. We're going to continue to hold discussions and be a platform to bring about dialogue and data, so that we can continue to make recommendations on how the budget will be allocated and how it will be dispersed. FINEX is an organization, I always say, we're one of the most empathetic to the challenges of developing a budget and then also making sure it's done properly.
Yeah, we need to make sure it's done properly. 2025, that's over and done with. Focus now on 2026 and making sure that it's clean and put where it needs to be. EJ, thank you so much for being here with us this morning.
Thank you, Mikey.